بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا من فضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inshallah, we'll be going through the abridged version of the Shamaail of the Prophet ﷺ by Imam al-Tirmidhi, who collected a whole book on the description of the Prophet ﷺ, beginning with his physical description, والسلام, what he used to look like, how he used to walk and move and talk and so on, and also about the things that were related to him and the things that he owned, what he had, how he used to behave with people, how he used to behave even with his own belongings, sallallahu the things that he owned, how the Prophet ﷺ was the epitome of perfection in his dealings with everything, whether it was a human being or even a thing like an item and so on. And so this is a very, very beneficial book. I consider it necessary subject matter for every Muslim to know. And Imam Tirmidhi's book is really the best book to get an encompassing view of the Prophet ﷺ in this way. I'm going to share the screen, inshallah. The hosts will enable me to do that. So I'm going to share the book on the screen in Arabic. I'll be translating, inshallah, but for those of you who want to follow with the Arabic, inshallah, you can. So let's just do that. And, this is the month of Rabi'a al-Awwal, month of the birth of the Prophet ﷺ, mercy to humankind. All of us have to do something to show our love to the Messenger ﷺ. The least we can do is to send plentiful prayers of blessings and peace upon him, alayhi salatu wasalam, and to make that a part of our daily practice. But every love that you show the Messenger ﷺ is but a tiny fraction of what he showed us, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And every love that you show the Prophet ﷺ will be given back to you, will be requited. When you love somebody and you show them love, they reciprocate, and Allah reciprocates your love for the Prophet ﷺ. And the love of the Messenger ﷺ is the key to the sweetness of Iman. I remember that earlier this year, I went on Umrah, and the habit of our shuyukh that we've seen is that many of them will go to Mecca only for a small period of time. So they'll go and they'll perform one Umrah or two Umrahs or three. They'll stay maybe for a day or two, but they will spend more time in Medina around the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the scholars classically used to speak about what was the best place in the world. Is it the Kaaba and the area around the Kaaba, or is it the very earth that holds the body of the Prophet ﷺ, where he's buried? And several of the scholars said that the earth that holds the body of our Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is even greater than the Kaaba and the area around it because of what it holds, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is not an exaggeration. This is not something that is fantasy. It's not something that involves loving the Prophet ﷺ more than he deserves to be loved. A'udhu billah. Right? All of these ideas are incorrect ideas in people's minds, that there should be some limit to the love of the Messenger ﷺ, and if you go over that love, then it becomes shirk or something. Right? Instead, we have a very precise teaching from Imam al-Busiri, who authored the beautiful book Al-Burda, praising the Prophet ﷺ. And he said in this book, he said that leave what the Christians said about their prophet and then say whatever you want about the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. and your praise will still be beneath what he is worth, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So as long as you don't say he is Allah, or he's the son of Allah, or he's a part of the Trinity or something, whatever you say about him, alayhi salatu wasalam, of perfections, is still beneath his rank with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So don't be worried about loving him too much. Rather, be worried about loving him too little, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Anyway, I was on Umrah in Medina, and I saw a very beautiful thing. I was sitting outside, and a man, he looked like he was from the Indian subcontinent. I don't know if he was an Indian or he was Bangladeshi or from Pakistan. I'm not sure. But he was looking at the Prophet ﷺ's dome, and he was crying and out of love, and he just sang a song spontaneously. He started singing to the Prophet ﷺ. And I thought to myself, subhanallah, you know, this man, he's a poor man. He's just there. He has nothing to give. He has nothing to offer. And, you know, his heart is just saying, oh, Rasulullah, I love you. You know, what can I do for you? And I'll sing you a song, you know. And that is true iman. That is true iman. That you, no matter who you are, you want to give something to the Prophet ﷺ. You want to offer him something out of your love for him. So I envied that man, and I envied his iman. And if you would have seen him, he didn't look like a scholar. He didn't have a big beard. He didn't have a beard, actually. He had a mustache. He looked like an ordinary person. You know, he didn't. If you saw him, you wouldn't think maybe that he's a very pious person or something, right? But this is why we say that piety is not evident on a person's face or on how they look or how they dress, right? Piety is what is the reality in their heart. And how many a person maybe who doesn't look like, you know, they don't have a beard or they don't have something, but they have a bigger love in their heart for the Prophet ﷺ, and therefore greater iman than many other people who, you know, are all dressed up, but with nowhere to go. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the reality of the love of the Messenger ﷺ. And only Allah knows, you know, who's truthful. So we ask Allah ta'ala to make us of them. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. He says, قال الحافظ أبو عيسى محمد بن عيسى ابن ثورة الترمذي. So his name is Abu Isa Muhammad. He says, باب chapter ما جاء في خلق رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. It's a chapter on the hadiths that have come about the form of the Prophet. So khalq here means creation, and what is meant here is his created form, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what he looked like. So we're reading from the book here, and also I have the sharh of our Sheikh Hassan Bukhari in this book, which is an excellent commentary. It's called Al-Ma'sul fi Shama'il al-Rasul, the sweetness of honey in the Shama'il of the Prophet ﷺ. So the book is called The Sweetness of Honey. And it's a really, really good commentary. It hasn't been translated into English yet, but inshallah somebody will translate it. So the first hadith is from Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu, أنه سمعه يقول. Okay. And what is in this book is it's a shortened version. It doesn't mention the whole narration. It just mentions, sorry, the whole chain. It mentions only the Sahabi who narrated it. So Anas ibn Malik was a great Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ. His mother actually brought him to the Messenger ﷺ as a child, and she asked the Prophet ﷺ, she said, this is my son, and I want to offer him to you, to serve you, that he work in your house as a servant. Again, this is love. She said, you know, I want to give you my son, let him live with you and let him do for you whatever you want. He was a little boy. So Prophet ﷺ took him, and he lived in the Prophet ﷺ's household. He grew up there. He said that I went there as his servant. He said, but he served me more than I served him. He said he ended up doing more for me than I was doing for him. And Prophet used to love Anas, and he made dua for him. He said, may your life be long, and he said, may your child be, may you have many children. And they say that he lived 120 years. He was one of the oldest of the Sahaba, if not the oldest, the last one to pass away. He lived about 120 years. And he had a very large number of children. In fact, he buried many of his children before he himself died. One of the interesting things about the Sahaba who described the Prophet ﷺ, you see here it's from Anas, and some of the other ones, is that they were children. And the scholars mention that the adult Sahaba used to have a lot of awe and reverence to the Prophet ﷺ, so they would not look at him in his face. They would not look at him too much. They would maybe like look a little bit, but they would spend most of their time looking down. And this was out of reverence for him, ﷺ. And because of his enormous light, it was very difficult to keep staring at him. You would feel shy, and you would feel awkward, and you would feel out of place to just look at him like that for a long time. However, with children, this wasn't the case. And children naturally have less inhibition, and also they don't feel these things that adults feel. And so many of the descriptions are from children, the Sahaba that were children at that time. So he said, كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ليس بالطويل البائن. He said, Prophet ﷺ wasn't so tall that he stuck out of a group. So if he was walking with a group of people, he wouldn't be so tall that you could see his head floating, way above the crowd. He says, ولا بالقصير, and neither was he short. He says, ولا بالأبيض الأمهق, and neither was he extremely white-skinned. Amhaq is like an albino almost, like someone's really white-skinned. ولا بالآدم, and neither was he dark black. So neither was he extremely white, neither was he dark or black. ولا بالجعد القطط, and neither did he have absolutely curly hair, like tiny kind of rings of hair where they're so curly that the hair is like small rings. ولا بالصبت, neither did he have absolutely straight hair. Neither did he have completely straight hair. So he's describing Prophet ﷺ as a medium, right? Neither was he extremely tall, neither was he short. However, he was towards the tall side. Okay, and when you would see him walking with a group of people, you would never feel that he was shorter than the tallest person, even though he was. Umar ibn Khattab was taller than him, but you would never feel that he was, because again, this is one of the miracles of Prophet ﷺ, that you wouldn't feel that about him. But he was of a medial height towards the tall. Neither was he absolutely white skinned, and neither was he dark black. He was in the middle. And interestingly, you see this word al-Adam. Adam means black skin, and this is the name and the description of Adam, our father, alayhi salam. And the hadith mentioned that Adam was black. Okay, and he was made from all of the clays of the earth, and his color was black. So we have no racism in Islam. And if you want to know the origin of humanity, we go back to a black man. Adam alayhi salam was black, and he was our father. Prophet ﷺ didn't have absolutely, he didn't have like an African would have like extremely curly hair. Neither did he have absolutely straight hair the way someone from the Far East would have absolutely straight hair, because like his hair was in the middle. They say it was wavy. ﷺ had big curls or waves in his hair, but neither was it straight, neither was it absolutely curly. He says, بعثه الله تعالى على رأس 40 سنة. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent him at the top of 40 years, meaning at the age of 40. فأقام بمكة 10 سنين, and then he lived in Mecca for 10 years. Okay, and then he says, وبالمدينة 10 سنين, and then in Medina he lived 10 years. وتوفاه الله على رأس 60 سنة, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused him to pass away at the age of 60. وليس في رأسه ولحيته 20 شعرا, and there was not more than 20 white hairs in his head and in his beard. Okay, so let's go back. The Arabs have a habit when they speak about numbers that they round numbers. We know the Prophet ﷺ passed away at the age of 63, not 60. So when Anas said 60 here, he's not confused. He's not like not remembering, or he's not missing 3 years, but rather the Arabs had a habit of rounding numbers. So the Prophet ﷺ actually did live 10 years in Mecca. This is exact. In Medina, it wasn't 10, it was 13. But Anas, in his narration, he rounds down that number from 13 to 10. And when he says Prophet ﷺ passed away at the age of 60, this is again rounding down. He passed away ﷺ at the age of 63. Also, when he says that the Prophet ﷺ didn't have in his hair and his beard more than 20 white hairs, this is again rounding. The other hadiths mention very specifically that it was about 11, and some mention 17 or 18 white hairs. For a 63-year-old man, this is pretty amazing. Prophet ﷺ. And he mentions ﷺ in a hadith, he said that what caused him to gray was the surahs that he would receive from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the revelation of the Quran that he would receive from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the descriptions that Allah had sent down, the things that Allah told him about the akhirah, about Jannah, about Jahannam, about the fate of people that are going to Jahannam, the difficulty of being upright, and what Allah expects from his creation. This is what affected the Prophet ﷺ. And he mentions in a hadith that Imam Tirmidhi mentions in his book, not this book, not the Shamaail, but the Sunan al-Tirmidhi, the other book, which is one of the 6 hadith books that we have. He said, Prophet said, "Shaybatni Hudun wal Waqi'a wal Mursalat." He said, what caused me to go gray was Hud and Al Waqi'a and Al Mursalat and Amma Yatasa'alun and Wa Idha Shamsu Kuwirat. He said, these surahs are what caused me to gray. The scholars mention that this is not literal, that he didn't literally go gray because of this, but that he mentioned to Sallallahu that this was a great difficulty for him. These surahs were, the meanings of these surahs were a difficulty for him, because he felt the responsibility towards the people. He felt that he had to call them, and he wanted everybody to go to Jannah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so this was very difficult on him, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described to him that there will be disbelievers. He described that people will not listen, and so on. And this is of the perfection of his mercy, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for his ummah. And so this is what it means. And it's very interesting that the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't live a very long time. He passed away at the age of 63 Hijri years. So this would be about maybe 60, 61 years, 60 years in the solar calendar. So that's not a very long time. So he didn't reach advanced old age. But he changed the whole world around him. And he achieved what nobody could achieve in thousands of years in his career as a prophet, which only lasted 23 years. Prophet ﷺ in 23 years achieved what nobody could achieve ever in the history of humanity. And he turned around the jahl and the ignorance that was in the Arabian Peninsula in this short amount of time, such that at the end, in the last Hajj, he said to the people, he said, "Ala hal ballagh." He said, "Have I not passed on the message?" They said, "Yes, you have." He said, "Allahumma ashhad." He said, "Oh Allah, bear witness that I've told them everything." And then he said to the people, فَلْيُبَلِّغَ الشَّاهِدُ الْغَائِبُ. And he said, whoever hears me now, go and tell the others. If you've got the message, go and spread it. Go and spread it out. Let the one who heard it tell the one who didn't hear. And so the wajib now on his ummah, us, is to give what is due to him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in terms of his love, and to pass on his message, and to follow what he brought. This is what he has over us as his right over us, is that we listen to him, we follow him, and we pass on his message, and we pass on his beauty to other people. We tell them the truth of this. And everybody has their role to play. The not least and the greatest is to teach your children. Right? This is the greatest thing you can do, is to teach your children. You don't have to go and convert 700 Christians. You can teach your children and you can have the greatest reward. Okay, we'll read one more hadith, inshallah. So Anas ibn Malik also said the Prophet ﷺ, كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ربعة. ربعة means of average height. ليس بالطويل ولا القصير. He was neither tall nor short. He said Hasan al-Jismi. He said he had a beautiful body, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وكان شعره ليس بجعد ولا سبط. His hair was neither curly nor straight. أسمر اللون. Asmar means brown skinned or wheatish. إذا مشى يتكفى. If he walks, he would lift his legs up when he would walk. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Interesting description. So he said Prophet ﷺ was a middle color. Asmar here doesn't mean that he was a dark brown, but rather a middle color. And that he said if he walked, he would lift up his legs. You know, some people that are very lazy, they walk like their feet kind of constantly dragging on the floor, like when they walk. Or they do that out of arrogance. Also, very arrogant people walk like that. They don't lift up their feet. They kind of look like they're floating. The Prophet ﷺ used to take strides when he walked. Okay. And the other hadiths will mention also that he used to walk fast. His walk was fast, as if he was walking downhill. But he didn't look like he was jogging. So he wasn't running when he would walk. But the Sahaba said that he would be walking at a normal pace. And if we walked at his pace, we would feel tired. We would feel like we have to keep up with him. So Prophet ﷺ was full of energy and strength. And he would walk like, they say, the way someone walks in deep sand. So like take, proper steps. And Prophet ﷺ was fast compared to people. This is short, we'll go on inshallah. So Al-Barra ibn Azib, third hadith here, he says, Rasulullah was rajulan marbu'an. Okay, again, same description, that he was a man of middle height. Ba'ida ma bayna al-mankibayn. This is a description here that wasn't the previous one. He was broad-shouldered. He said that the distance between his two shoulder blades was broad. He had broad shoulders. Azim al-jummati. He said he had a big jumma. Now in Arabic, you'll see later on this word jumma and the word limma. Okay, jumma is when you have hair that's between your ears and your shoulders. So Prophet ﷺ had big hair that was under his ears and above his shoulders. And in another hadith, they say that he had a limma. That means that his hair would reach his shoulders. So these hadiths indicate that at sometimes Prophet ﷺ's hair would grow all the way down to his shoulders. And sometimes he would keep it over, like just above his shoulders. But in both cases indicating that he kept long hair, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He wouldn't keep his hair short, he'd keep his hair long. He says, Azim al-jummati la shahmat udunayhi, that his hair would be up to his earlobes. Alayhi hullatun hamra, he was wearing a red cloak. Now, hulla in Arabic can mean two things. It can mean both that he's wearing an upper and lower garment of red, or like something on the upper garment, or a cloak, like a jacket or a cloak, a long cloak that is red. He says, Ma ra'aytu shay'an qattu. He said, I never saw a thing more beautiful than him. Ahsana minhu. Okay, and in this hadith, I never saw something more beautiful than him. You'll see other Sahaba when they say, I never saw someone like him, I never saw more beautiful than him, or I never saw more like perfect than him, or I never set eyes on anyone like him. There's another narration from him, from Barra ibn Azib, where he says, I never saw a man with shoulder length hair wearing a red cloak more beautiful than Prophet ﷺ. Lahu sha'run yadribu mankabayhi. His hair would hit his shoulders. Bu'ayda ma bayna mankabayn. He had distance between his shoulder blades. He had broad shoulders. Lam yakun bil qasir wa al-tawil. He was neither short nor tall. The scholars mention here that there are hadiths from the Prophet ﷺ. One of the Sahaba came to him, and Abdullah ibn Amr came to him, and he was wearing two red cloaks, two red pieces of clothes, a top garment and a bottom garment that was red. And he said to him, Prophet said to him, what are these red clothes? Take them off. this is from the clothes of the kuffar, or the clothes of the people of the hellfire. So he was wearing 2 red clothes, and Prophet told him to take him off. So the scholars say that we are not allowed to wear pure red. So what the Prophet was wearing in these hadiths, where they describe it as red, probably was something where the Arabs, if red is the main color, they'll call it red. Like, for example, if your clothes have red lines in them, okay, and the overall color is red when people see you, that's called red. The Arabs would call that red, but it's not a pure red garment. And this is what the Prophet was wearing. He was wearing something that had red stripes or red patterns or an overall red color in it, but not that it was pure red. Also, Allahu Alam, but a way to join between this and in other hadiths, Prophet told us not to wear saffron, the saffron color, because he said that that's the color that the non-Muslims would wear. And the Arabian Peninsula was a place where people would come for pilgrimage even from outside of Arabia. So the Prophet ﷺ, he told the Sahaba not to shave a part of the head and keep a part of the head in something called al-qasa', which is what the Jews do. If you've ever seen pictures of Orthodox Jews, you can look it up online. They shave their head and they keep 2 locks of hair on the side of their head. There were many Jews in Medina that had this hairstyle. And the Sahaba, like all human beings, right? We follow trends, right? You see something and you copy it. You go, that looks interesting. So some things you can copy, some things you can't copy. So that hairstyle, don't do it, right? Because that's the Jews. And saffron was the color of the robes of the Buddhists and the Hindus. Both of them wear saffron. And there were probably Hindu and Buddhist monks who'd reached Mecca. They came to visit it. They were travelers, right, in historical times. And Prophet ﷺ knew that was the color of their religion. And so to say, differentiate ourselves from them, we were prohibited from wearing that. And I think, Allahu Alam, that the prohibition against red is also something similar, because some of them wear saffron and some of them wear something that's closer to a red color. And in this hadith, the one that I just mentioned, where Abdullah ibn Amr comes to Prophet ﷺ, Abdullah ibn Amr is wearing 2 pieces of it. So a top garment and a bottom garment are both red. Again, if you see a monk, Buddhist monk or something, you'll see that they wear 2 pieces of clothes and both are red or saffron, orange. And so both of these colors as a solid color, they're prohibited. We can't wear a saffron or a red as a solid color. However, if it's a pattern in the clothes or lines or something, then it's different. So most likely the Prophet ﷺ here was wearing a red cloak that was patterned with red or lined with red. Wallahu a'lam. وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلق محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. Inshallah, we'll keep these short so people can, if they want to ask something or if they want to talk about something, then that's fine, inshallah. Okay, over time we'll finish the book. Any questions? Let's see if people can unmute themselves. If someone has a question, you can go ahead and ask a question. Okay, it seems like we have no questions today. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Jazakumullah khairan, everyone. Wa alaikum assalam.
I want to know what's the definition of Shamaail. Actually, is it only the physical appearance, or this also include the behavior and the way he walks like this?
Both, but they start the book with the physical description, but it's both. You'll see later on they speak about Prophet ﷺ's character also.
Okay, thank you, Jazakumullah.
Barakallah feekum, everyone. Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you for joining.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
My question is, can you please tell me which hadiths you're referring to in regards to the color prohibition?
Yeah, I don't know the references off the top of my head, inshallah, but maybe for next class then I can get them for you, inshallah.
Inshallah, thank you.
Jazakumullah. Jazakumullah khairan, everyone. Inshallah, we'll see you all next week. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.